I've had a lot of fun being in our Facebook um, group and hearing some of the comments, experiences, and questions. And so that sort of started me down a little different channel for tonight's call. So all you people that can communicate directly with Rob that are listening on your computer, I'm gonna pose a question for you. And that question is, what part of your body that experiences trauma from stress has the greatest effect on you overall, all the systems of the body. So I'm going to tell you what the 10 top systems are that are affected by stress, your head or your brain. And when that's overstressed, it leads to issues with mood, anger, depression, irritability, lack of energy, concentration issues, and really in advanced states, anxiety and panic attacks. The heart. The heart is very susceptible to stress, especially when the stress kicks our adrenals into play. And this can lead to increased blood pressure, fast heart rate, irregular heartbeat, increased risk of heart attack, stroke. And would you believe it? We now know that stress can actually elevate our cholesterol. Your skin. Now, we don't normally think about our skin being stressed too much, other than if we're outside walking around and we walk through a cloud of some toxic stuff. But stress actually does affect our skin. It can create problems like acne, psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, random breakouts, various types of skin rashes. So the skin is involved. The stomach. The stomach is very susceptible to stress. It can lead to, as most people know today, peptic ulcers, various diseases such as irritable bowel syndrome, as well as irritable bowel disease, food allergies, stomach cramps, acid reflux, nausea, and fluctuations in weight. Pancreas, that's another guy. He kind of goes across your body, sort of in front of the liver, and then over across and down the other side, left side a little bit. And when the pancreas gets stressed, it results in elevated secretions of insulin. And let me tell you something. When that happens, prolonged over a period of time, it forces a high, rapid rate of insulin production until pretty soon the insulin we're producing isn't exactly perfect, and we can become literally allergic to our own insulin. And we also know that as carbohydrate intolerance or type 2 diabetes. And we also know that when the pancreas becomes highly stressed, it can also lead to obesity. And here's one you probably never thought about, but damaged arteries. Then there's the immune system. Now, the immune system is quite the character. It's pretty systemic. It's 70% of it lives in our gut, but there's a lot of other parts in various other areas of our body as well. And when we become overstressed, the immune system it becomes less effective, and it can even become ineffective. And then we lose our ability to battle and recover from illnesses, and it can lead to chronically high levels of inflammation in the body, which can cause all kinds of chronic conditions. Well, then the reproductive system. We don't normally think about that guy as having too much effect from the stress in our lives, but guess what? When the reproductive system, and we'll get into this maybe in another call, but different kinds of stresses affect each one of these systems a little bit differently. But I can ramble on and keep you on the phone too long, so we'll hit that on another call. But the reproductive system, when it becomes stressed, hello guys, it leads to decreased levels of testosterone. We got all these men clinic out there now. Go in and get your testosterone shot. Well, maybe if you got your stress down, you wouldn't need it. Your body would be making its own the way it should. For women, it can actually cause estradiol production problems, and depending upon your genetic makeup, you can make too much, which can lead to various forms of serious diseases, or too little, and then it leads to reduced fertility. And, of course, that leads to dampening of our sexual drive and behavior, and even to loss of interest in sex altogether. Then here's another one that people don't ever talk about, but it's kind of important for most of us. We kind of learn how important our hands and arms and legs and knees and feet are when they don't work so right anymore. Most of the rest of the time, we take them for granted. But guess what? Stress affects our joints and our muscles, causing aches and pains, inflammation, tension, lowered bone density, which can lead to osteoporosis, and a lot of tightness in the neck, shoulder, and back, and chronic. Last but certainly not least is the intestinal tract. And, the intestinal tract and the stomach are pretty tied together. What a lot of people don't know is the stomach, the intestines, and the brain really affect each other. We've talked on these calls before about neurotransmitters and how neurotransmitters are designed to help us cope with stress. We have inhibitory neurotransmitters to calm us down when we're overamped, and we have excitatory neurotransmitters to pump us up when we're too tired and we need to get up and go to work, or we need to get the kids off someplace, or we have some commitment. But in that intestinal area, when we're under a lot of stress, it decreases nutrient absorption, sometimes as much as 20,000-fold. 20,000-fold. Think about it. It also decreases enzymatic output, increases your risk for inflammatory bowel disease, diabetes, certain forms of colon and rectal cancer, and the list goes on and on. Now, what kind of led me to sort of think about this and get involved in this was there's been several people that posted in our Facebook page about MTHFR gene. Now, for some of you, you probably don't know what that is, but anybody that's been analyzed for it, tested for it, knows what it is. And it means that we have a little problem with getting B12. B12 is really important. We don't need a lot of it, but what we need, we really need. And without it, we can have all kinds of problems with elevation in homocysteine levels, which can lead to all kinds of heart problems. We can have clotting issues, skeletal abnormalities, cognitive problems, and the list goes on. Now, the hard part about MTHFR gene is that there's over 40 different types of mutations. So you can have a little bit of it or you can have a lot of it. And some people have more than one mutation. And there's a lot of information out there in the world about this particular problem and what to do about it. Now, in the gut, one of the most important things to remember is this little guy called the ileum, which is in the lower part of your digestive tract, is where we absorb our B12. And in fact, anything that isn't picked up by the upper gut in terms of absorption of nutrients, proteins, minerals, vitamins, phytonutrients, antioxidants, anything that isn't picked up there is picked up by the ileum. But in the body, the only place B12 can be picked up is in the ileum. And oh, by the way, the only place we can pick up and recycle our bile is also the ileum. So now what's happening in the real world is that we're understanding that how much of this deviation in this particular gene is actually genetic, or how much of it is happening because our guts become so toxic and inflamed that we're not able to pick up any of it. And over time, the longer you go without being able to supply particular fuel needs for particular systems of the body, we start to get into a bit of trouble. So it's very interesting that when I read all of these testimonials and questions and things that are happening with people, you guys can send my mind flying off so good that I can have a hard time going to sleep at night. And so when I get in there and read, and sometimes I spend hours in there, even if I don't always comment, it's because you're triggering my brain about the stress and how it impacts all of these systems of the body. And knowing what those impacts are, what are the other things that each and every one of us need to be aware of in terms of our own backup support system to help us utilize our Solera and indeed, even our food. I mean, toxins absorbed by the colon can lead to all kinds of diseases and disorders. As we've mentioned many times, 70% of the immune system is in the gut. Every foot of the colon, every foot, you got 25 foot, okay? Everybody's got at least 25 feet, even us little bitty people. So for every foot, you can store up to 10 pounds of dried up old desiccated fecal matter, which creates a barrier that slows down your body's ability to digest, absorb, and even more importantly, detoxify. Think about it. That's a lot. There are a lot of herbal cleansers and things out there on the marketplace today, and laxatives, some of which can actually be harmful to the system. And your bloodstream, by the way, is only as clean as your colon. Well, if we think about the gut as being the factory that produces the fuel, but the blood as being all the trucks that deliver the fuel, the two of those really represent a huge amount of what it takes to keep everything happening correctly and on time. And when that doesn't happen, then we begin to have little symptoms. We get tired. We don't sleep as well. We get irritable. It affects our cognitive function. Even our speech can be affected. So every neurotransmitter found in the brain is also found in the gut. And when we have digestive disturbances, those proteins tend to break down incorrectly, and we start to send the wrong message. You know, I looked up some facts that I've looked up before, and I was a little bit shocked to learn some of the facts and new information that's out about old questions. And, you know, ingestion of your food to elimination should never be more than 18 hours. But I learned for the average North American, it actually takes up to 36 hours. Wow. So if it takes you 36 hours to process every meal and you're eating 3 meals a day, you start to get the picture. And the slower it moves through your system, the more fermented it becomes, and the more toxic the very food that you're eating can become within your own body. So one of the things that we want to stress for each and every one of you is to stop for a minute and think about what your daily lifestyle really is. And wherever you are, whatever place you're in now, let's get you some knowledge to make those changes. And they don't have to happen in 5 minutes. But if you make a commitment to make those changes a little bit at a time, it's amazing what can happen. Basically, there's 9 steps that you need to think about that can support your digestion, boost your energy, improve your brain, rejuvenate your skin, stop problems before they actually occur. The cleaner your gut, the less likely it is for you to develop any degenerative disease. Write it down. The cleaner the gut, the less likely, by as much as 60% less likely, to develop degenerative conditions like arthritis and bursitis, and the list goes on. You guys know what those are. You're on your phones, you're on your computers all the time. Now, almost all degenerative health problems are linked to the accumulation of toxins, especially in the gut. But after a while, the gut can't take anymore. Once that 5 to 10 pound limit for every foot is exceeded, well, guess what? The very metabolic waste that you create digesting your food and delivering it to the cell, and the cell makes its own waste material, starts getting stored in places where you don't want it to be. Now the chain of supply and all the public works are starting to suffer. So here's some of the things you need to do, and you need to be really serious with yourself about it. You know what? You're spending a lot of time and a lot of energy learning how to maintain good health. And rule number 1 is that you've got to do a real serious autobiography of your daily habits. How much sugar are you eating? In my personal opinion, never eat the stuff. It's poison. It'll kill rats. Did you know that? Stop the gluten. Get the GMO foods out of your diet. It's absolutely scary how many O estrogens are in GMO foods. Estrogens build up in the body, and sooner or later they're going to cause a major problem, like prostate cancer, breast cancer, uterine cancer, and the list goes on. Get the GMOs out. The wonderful thing, even if you start just taking a few of these things out of your diet and you start eating more organic as much as you can, fruits and vegetables and even organic whole grains, you're beginning to not only change your life, but your dollars are creating a change in the marketplace. Do you remember? It was only about 12 years ago when you never saw an organic anything in Albertsons or Safeway. Now those stores not only have them, they're out front in the produce section. They're featuring them because they know that's what people want. It's all of us who've made those changes to start getting better quality fuels for our families and ourselves have driven that change in the marketplace. We need to drive that change with GMO foods as well. And it can make a huge difference in your long-term health. You know, when I was a kid, if a child got cancer, it made ABC News on the TV. In my lifetime, we're now in a place where every major city in the United States of America has hospitals dedicated just to children with cancer. Let me tell you something. That's not genetics. That's toxins. It's building up in us and it's building up in our kids, and we need to change it. Nobody's going to change it for us, folks. We need to change it ourselves. Your colon is exposed to all the toxic waste from every system of the human body. So start there. What do? How do I cleanse my colon? What can I do? Well, you can snoop around. There's lots of different programs. It's hard, though, if you don't have a solid background on what to do. There are some things called ozonated magnesium. There's a number of those products out there on the marketplace today. And the wonderful thing about it is you can start with a little bit and you can build up. You know your colon is cleansing when you're having 3 to 5 bowel movements a day and you start seeing some pretty strange textures and pretty strange colors coming out. And usually you don't do it for more than 5 or 6 days. And you do it 2 or 3 times a year. Now, why ozonated? Well, basically, much of the bad stuff that lives in the gut, including the toxic and calcified debris, can be broken up and released when you get oxygen back into the gut. And then that creates an environment where you can really start helping your body regrow the gut biome. And basically what that means is getting the good gut floras back. And there's lots of different ways to do it. But you can take Acidophilus, Bifidus, Bulgaria, Saccharomyces. You can take them all till the cows come home. You can take a bottle a day, and it will help somewhat because it'll break down gas, and it helps in a lot of ways. But it will never become self-sustaining until we have the proper environment for it to move into. So for those of you who answered in the internet, if you said the gut or the digestive system, you were absolutely right. Stress on the digestive system affects more conditions and more of the other systems of the body than even the brain. And that's saying something. You might wonder why, because very often we feel the effects of stress in the brain first. But the brain's kind of a smart cookie. Guess what he does with his stress? He ships it downstream to the gut because he's too busy to worry about it. So if you want if you want to have a better body, if you want to have better energy, if you want to sleep better, if you want to look younger, if you want to perform every day in a much more efficient and vital way, and you want to back up what we're doing with Solera because it's magical stuff. There's no two ways about it. It is the most impactful product that I have ever worked with in 56 years in this business for relieving stress. But there is no panacea. There is no take 2 aspirin and mail me the $5. We have to do our work like anything else. Whether you're going to clean the house, whether you're going to remodel, whether you're going to, redo the engine in the truck or the car, it takes work. But it's work that we can do a little bit at a time. Write it on the mirror where you brush your teeth. Put it on the visor in the car. Remind yourself every day that in every way you're going to try and give your body better. And know that as you do that, you set an amazing energy loose in the cosmos that will affect the entire community of life. And I mean the entire community, from the fishes in the sea to the birds in the air, everybody. It makes it better. As we work to make our fuel better, the fringe benefit of that is making a better world. And by the way, those of you with the MTHFR gene, you want that gut clean. You want that ileum, the ileum terminal in particular, as clean as you can possibly make it, because that's where you're going to get your B12. And guess what? Cyanocobalamin and methylcobalamin are not your best buddies. And there is another form that's even better for you, and it's hydroxocobalamin, because it easily converts to the more active form. It's not as talked about as it should be, but the studies are absolute. You want to go out and find that particular form of B12 if you're suffering with any one of the number of 40 MTHFR genes. And getting the stress out of your body and cleaning up your gut is going to make sure that you get a chance to deliver it, and delivering it in that form will help your body modify and correct. Okay, Rob, back to you.